This segment is brought to you by JigMasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to JigMasters.com and use promo code PNF20 and save 20% off your next jig order today.
You're listening to Bass Fishing for Noobs on the Paddle and Fin podcast with your hosts Ryan Milford and Sean Lavery. Welcome back to Bass Fishing for Noobs on the Paddle and Fin podcast. I'm Ryan. We got Sean in here.
Hey guys.
And today, once again, another episode just me and Sean. You know, these are the best episodes because you get to hear us talk a lot. But yeah, me and Sean are just going to talk about how our fishing's been going lately. And, you know, we were planning on this, and today had some pretty big events for me out on the water that kind of, you know, some good topics for this subject. But how you doing, Sean?
I'm hanging in there. This whole getting ready to be a teacher thing has been exhausting, to say the least. But I'm working through it, and excited to get started. Other than that, I haven't had a ton of time to fish, but I did get out yesterday for a while and actually did pretty well, so I was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I saw you got you a decent one out there. Still catching some catfish, but
yeah, and not yesterday wasn't as bad. I caught like maybe two catfish and more bass. And actually, it was funny. The one place where I fish, there's a restaurant that a lot of times people have weddings there because it's right on the bank of the river and it's a pretty nice restaurant. So right at the place I caught my biggest fish yesterday, I caught like a 15-incher. Then maybe 2 minutes later, I caught a 13-incher. And right about that time, I could see there was a tent set up and there was people there. And right about after I caught that second fish, like the wedding started going off, and I was kind of right in the background. Like I could see they were facing the river, so I was like, this is where they are. But I felt really awkward sitting there in the middle background of their wedding, so I paddled further away, even though that's where I was catching fish.
You know, 10 years from now, they're going to look at their wedding photos and be like, look at this random kayaker out here, you know, photo bombing our wedding pictures.
That was totally me, and I felt so awkward, so I paddled out of there. And I didn't do bad other places, but that definitely was where they seemed to be. So
yeah.
How about you? Yeah.
So I hadn't been out in like 2 or 3 weeks, and I wanted to get out, so I went out on Duck River again this morning. Started off pretty slow. Yeah, I'll just go over the day. Yeah, started off slow. Let's see, it was like 2 or 3 hours before I caught my first fish. Caught a spot. Then I caught a little smallmouth, and had bad hook penetration on him, and you know I'm hoping he's not blind, but you know it was right there at the eye socket. I did everything I could to try to save him. I hate when that happens. Like, gosh, it eats at me, that kind of stuff.
But I've seen some pretty fat fish with one eye, so I think they can still work around that somewhat. So.
Hopefully, hopefully, he can still see out of it.
Right.
But if not, hopefully he's still able to manage. But yeah, so I wasn't having the greatest luck. I caught a couple. They weren't very big. Then I decided, me and a buddy had talked about throwing like a Helgramite Ned rig. And I had bought some a while back, but I'd never used them. I bought some of I think it's called like Lunker
Hunt
company.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's right. Anyways, I got some little Helgramite now it's gonna eat at me with this. Maybe it's Lunk City. Either way, got a little Helgramite Ned rig things, and my buddy was talking about how like he was catching all kinds of fish on it on his river, or on a similar like a Helgramite lure,
Okay.
and a bunch of small ones, but he was catching a bunch of fish. So I was like, well, let me try this. So I'm up against like a rock wall. It's kind of still water casting out there. I figured it probably wouldn't be any smallmouth out there, but figured maybe a decent spot or something like that would be out there. And all of a sudden, something bit, and I set the hook, and this thing started to take me for a sleigh ride. Hey, I was using a medium rod on like 10-pound test, so it wasn't like as light as it could be to make it really fun, but it was still pretty fun. It's bending my rod way over, and I'm like, man, I got a big fish on here. And it was a big fish, but it surfaced and realized that it wasn't a bass. It's a drum, or I guess it's a drum. I never caught one before, but it was a big one. it was a good size. Yeah, but man, it pulled the kayak a little bit, and I had to finesse it a little bit to get it in. I use a cheap net that I got for like $15 on Amazon, and for bass it's been fine. It's the rubberized netting and all that.
Okay.
But it's like pretty much the perfect size that I wanted, and I'm a cheapskate, so I went with it, and it's been fine for bass. I've never had an issue. It bent my net. Um, but yeah, and so like I had to sit there for a minute and like look in its mouth because I didn't know if it had teeth or what.
Yep.
Because I've never caught one, and I didn't have my fish grips or anything, and I finally realized it didn't have any teeth, and I pulled it out of the net. I put it on my board. I think it measured 23 1/4. It was a big old fish. It was heavy too. I didn't have a scale. I wish I could have weighed it. It was a heavy fish, but tossed it back. I fished a little bit more, went on up and everything, and finally decided I needed to turn around because, we had planned to record this afternoon. I was like, well, I need to start heading back so I can be back in time. Well, I'm coming back down through, I'm moving kind of quick, I'm fishing at the same time. I think before that drum, I did catch a rock bass too. So, and it was like an 8-inch rock bass, so it wasn't one of the little tiny ones, but it was decent. But okay, so I'm coming down river.
Just turn around, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I turned around. I went like half a mile since I turned around. A half mile back down river. Because I'd went up probably 2 miles, maybe a little more, something like that. So I'm coming down, about to go through this current. And, I'm start going through it. It's not like super fast and all that, but it's pretty steady moving. But I'm trying to cast and everything. Well, at the end of this section where it's got fast current, there's a tree laid over, and like all the roots and the dirt and everything are sticking up flat like a wall. Okay, well, over to the I've got to go to the right of it. To the left of it's like a little hole. It's almost like kind of like an eddy right there. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I wonder if there's a fish sitting in there. So I got kind of greedy, kind of stupid, and I cast over into that area. I'm like, I'm gonna work this real quick, then I'll grab my paddle and I'll turn myself. And so I cast it. I'm working it, and I'm getting really close to this tree. So I reel in real quick, set my rod down in front of me, grab my paddle, start paddling while I'm not turning like as fast as I'm wanting to, you know. And so I go like into the tree. My rod sticks through the roots. I'm like, oh crap, my rod's gonna break. So like I reached down and I was like, I'm just gonna hit the tree. Worst case scenario, I'm just gonna hit it and pull my rod out and then push myself off and go on down. Well, I don't know. It happened so fast. I believe I hit and then tried to pull my rod out, and kind of at the same time, all of a sudden, my kayak just completely flipped over. And man, I've heard it a ton. I've heard Brian say it on the OG show 1,000 times. Like, it ain't a matter of if you're gonna flip; it's a matter of when. And I guess I was kind of cocky, and I was like, I really don't see that happening to me because I'm usually pretty smart about that kind of stuff and all that. But it happened, and it happened fast. And man, so I was able to stand up. I was in probably middle of my stomach, probably about how deep it was. So I was able to stand up. I'm still in some good moving water. My paddle's trying to float away. I watched my pack of Kitex that I had sitting under my seat that I was using float away. My kayak's completely flipped over. It's completely upside down. I had to flip it. It wasn't the funnest thing to do, but I was able to do it. I did snap my rod that was in there, and that's my favorite rod, and I've only had it like a couple months, so that really sucks. But so my other 3 rods, I keep them horizontal in some rod holders I made out of PVC on my crate. Well, they all stayed in there surprisingly, but I did. Wow. I do keep those floats on my rods just in case they ever fall out or anything.
Right.
So wasn't really first priority. My paddle was trying to float away. My fish finder that's on, I have it on a Yak Attack fish finder mount. It got jerked out of the gear track, like the base and all.
Wow.
And it was holding on by the cord. And I'm not sure if it's going to work right or not because I don't have a battery anymore. Surprisingly enough, I don't know how it happened. I keep my battery under my seat. Well, I have to like finesse it to get it under there, but somehow it came out whenever it flipped. And yeah, so I feel really bad about that because now there's a battery in the river somewhere. I looked and looked, couldn't find it. But yeah, so trying to think what else. Oh, when I got my new kayak, I was kind of lazy. I didn't put my tether for my Ketch board on my kayak, and I've been like just going out there without it. Well, last night I was like, "Hey, let me put this on there," and thankfully I did.
Wow!
Because I would have lost it if I wouldn't have. I lost. I use like the small boxes. I'm not sure what the size is for the number and all that, but yeah, all of them stay in my crate except for one, my go-to box. Bite FD has slots on both sides where you can put one of those, and I always put my go-to box over here on the left side. One, so it's easily accessible. Two, makes it easier when I go to put a fish on the board can set up against that box.
Okay.
But it's gone. I got the Yak Attack cup holder, and it more like a bait holder. That's where when I change lures, a lot of time they get thrown in there. There's probably a couple jackhammers in there, a couple jigs, a few odd and end other things. They're all gone.
Ugh.
Not to mention, there was one or two jackhammers or other chatterbaits in that go-to box. So yeah, I probably lost. I lost over $100 worth of lures today.
Plus a rod.
Yep, $150 rod. Battery. Battery ain't that bad. I made a custom-made box, and it was $30 battery. And so, that's
Still definitely an expensive trip.
$5. Yeah. Well, I still don't know how expensive it is because my water-resistant iPhone apparently wasn't too water-resistant, and it's on rice right now because it went off and wouldn't come back on. Now, right before we came out here to record, it was starting to light up with the little Apple symbol, and then it'd shut back off, and then a couple seconds later it'd come back on for a few seconds and then shut back off. So I think it's trying to do it, but and then I vape, and yeah, it got submerged and it's on rice right now too. And yeah,
That's heartbreaking.
have you ever flipped?
Only on well, I went out with the intention of flipping and flipped before I intended to. It was when I first got my kayak, my original kayak, my Wilderness Systems Tarpon 100, and I went out empty with except for my paddle, and with the expectation of flipping when I got back to the boat just so I could practice getting in. But I ended up upriver, and the wind picked up and the current picked up, and it flipped me early. But luckily I was kind of ready for it because I didn't have anything. I purposely went out empty so that I would not lose anything. So.
And I've heard people talk about doing that so many times, but I haven't done it. And I've thought about it, but it's like if I'm gonna go to the water, I want to fish.
Yep.
And now I kind of wish I had done it.
I haven't done it I didn't do it in my Kusa, and I didn't do it in the Hobie yet. So I probably should go try it. So
yeah, I'd recommend it because when you do it with all your gear in there, I don't know, it happened so fast that when I came, I went fully underwater. When I came back up, it kind of took me few seconds to grasp what all was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at some stuff trying to float away, some stuff trying to sink, and my kayak's upside down. And I was wearing my life jacket like I always do, and it didn't scare me at the time. Like I wasn't scared when it happened, but afterwards got to thinking about like the what ifs. Like what if I didn't have a life jacket on? I'm in that current. What if it would have I would have got swept away or something like that and wasn't able to get. I was able to stand there, but
Oh yeah.
What if that's because my upper body was lifted up so my feet could go down? You know what I mean?
Right. Or with trees and roots and stuff, there's all sorts of things you can get your foot trapped in. So I mean, just crazy stuff.
But yeah, it took me a second to like get my thoughts together and like grab my kayak and throw it over and flip it. And then I was like trying to remember everything that I had so I could know what all was missing and all that, and trying to put everything together. Everything that I had there, after I got it all situated, I'm trying to hold my kayak in this current and feel with my feet, try to find the stuff that I lost. And my lure was still stuck in those roots of that tree, and half of my rod was still stuck in it. The other half of the rod was just sitting there. in the water. But
So
I
you
had,
got the reel back at
yeah,
least?
yeah,
Okay. Well, that's good.
yeah. I just went over there and I cut the line and grabbed both pieces of the rod and everything. Um, man, it's really made me, it's really making me like think about stuff like that I don't usually tether that maybe need some type of restraint, like the battery,
Hmm.
or figure out a way to restrain like my go-to box up there in the front.
Well, you're making me think. Like I've been paddling on the river because it's so low, and so I take my Hobie drive out and I kind of just put the fins under my seat and have the pedal parts kind of in between my legs, but I don't tether it there. And I've thought about getting like a never lost tether or something for it. I know, there's plenty out there, and I keep thinking about that every time I go out. I'm like, man, if I flip, I could lose this drive, and I'm like,
That's really expensive.
it is. So now you're making me. I think I might go place an order for a never lost tether for my drive, because they have nice little hooks right there under, kind of by the bottom of your seat, that you can hook a tether to easy, and then I know if I flip, it's not going anywhere. So
Yeah, that that's not a bad idea, because
no.
that would probably make your trip like 3 times as expensive as mine. I don't know, what do those drives go for,
I
Nate?
think like 800, I think is
Oh,
what I'm thinking. So, but I don't know for sure. But for a $40 tether, or however much it, or $20 tether, however much it would be, even, I mean, rope or paracord would be
yeah,
something.
anything that'll hold it.
Yeah.
Most of my tethers, honestly, are I think they're called like they're a company called like Barracuda or something. I don't know. You get them at Walmart, and it's these like the spiral telephone style cord,
Hmm.
and they're just these cheap little tethers. I think they're like $5 for two of them, and that's what I use on most everything. Now, I've often wondered like how strong they actually are, but it held my catch board, so
Okay.
you know everybody
Yeah.
complains about how heavy those catch boards are. They're not really that heavy to me, but they do have some weight to them, and they held that.
And that's one nice thing about my crappy hog trough that I have, or whatever brand it is. It does have foam insulation in it, so it should float. But
Yeah,
still waiting to get my catch board. So
but
did you have, how'd getting back into your kayak go? Like, I know when
oh,
I first slipped, when I, like we were talking about, I had this moment of panic, like holy crap, and I threw myself up on the front, and I actually went over the other side and rolled it again. Just because I was trying to get up so fast, I slammed my knee onto my fishing rod holder too, and had a huge like lump on my leg where I bruised it. And then when I was in the water the second time, I was like, just chill out, everything's here. You're you have your life jacket on, just calm down. And then I was able to get back in. But that first initial panic that I had trying to get in quick, I just went right over the other side, I pushed too much and rolled it the other way. So
see, I didn't have that panic because I stayed. I got everything situated, and I stayed in the water for a little bit trying to find the stuff that I'd lost. So, I wasn't in a rush to get back in like that. But when I did try it, it I started in that water. It was halfway up my stomach, and tried to jump up in there, and it was about to tip back over on me. So I got back off, and I pulled it up to the other side of that tree that was laying down that I hit. Yeah, I decided to kind of look for the battery and stuff some more, and I didn't find it. But on the other side of that tree, it's more like waist deep or so.
okay.
So then I was able to just kind of step into the kayak. Um, but yeah, I was kind of wondering about that because I've heard a lot of people talk about how re-entry is kind of a pain.
Especially if you can't touch. It makes a world of difference.
Yeah, see, I could touch, and it was rough.
Yeah.
Until I got over to the little bit shallower water. But
And that was even in that kayak class that I took. We practiced in water that we couldn't touch, and but just in that heat of that moment, I panicked. So it's definitely something good to practice, because until it happens, knowing at least what to do. I knew what to do. I knew, like, they had taught us how to flip your kayak. The easiest way is just to swim to the one end of it, and then you can just roll it. Or like, I've seen people in like videos with Hobies where they just grab the fins and pull on the fins to get it to flip. Now, if you don't have the fins in, it's a little different. But
see, I didn't even think about that. I probably could have, grabbed my drive and did that. But like, I just kind of, the side beside me, I just kind of grabbed it, threw it over. But as far as getting on it, it also made me think, like, I really need to lose some of this weight that I gained, because trying to throw 270 pounds up onto a kayak, it's kind of rough.
well, if you need some weight loss, I recommend starting or attempting to teach, because I've lost. I think I'm down to 155 now, and I think it's mostly stress. So,
dude, I haven't been 155 since like the 7th grade. Well,
that's crazy, man. And
yes.
I know I asked you before the show. Does it take away your confidence at all in the kayak? Or I know we talked about it's not going to make you quit, but I know once I rolled my tarpon, I was like, that rolled pretty easy, and that's when I started looking for something wider, something more stable.
Well, see, the Bite FD, it's a pretty wide kayak. I think, what is it, 35 or 36 inches wide? So it's pretty wide. It's a stable kayak. This wasn't the fault of the kayak. This was my fault. It was my stupidity and my greediness wanting to get that last cast up in there that caused this. I could have easily maneuvered my way around that tree had I not wanted to get that last cast in there.
Mm-hmm.
It was completely my fault.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like pretty much any kayak, if you put it in the wrong position, it can flip on you.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you can put a blue sky in the wrong situation and it'll dump you out. Maybe slightly different circumstances than this one here, but there are circumstances where it's going to happen. So it hasn't like thrown my confidence in the kayak. I'm not going to quit kayaking because of it. I still love it. If anything, I'm just going to learn from it and, take that forward and try to be a little bit smarter about, that kind of stuff. And yeah, like all that stuff that I lost or broke, it can be, you can lose anything, materialistic things. You can lose those at any time. But the wisdom that I've learned from this experience, I'll keep that with me for the rest of my life.
Right.
So, yeah, definitely when I get another battery, I'm going to find a way to keep it strapped down. Which I never would have thought that it would have came out from under that seat. Because like I said, I got to kind of finesse it to get it to fit up under there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I wedge a lot of stuff under my seat. And that's kind of why, when I put the fins under there, when I have my drive out, I'm like, yeah, it'll hold it. But you never know. Moving water can do crazy things. So, well, water anyway, but especially moving water.
I was very surprised. I keep a bag with all my soft plastics. I keep it on top of my crate with just like a bungee cord over top. Oh, that's another thing I lost. I lost a ratchet strap because I used my ratchet strap with my cart to wheel it down to the water.
Mm-hmm.
And I just took the ratchet strap and like threw it in the back of the kayak, and it's gone. Which that ain't a big deal. I've got several of them.
What do you do with
But
your cart? Do you put your cart inside?
no, Bite FD don't have any
Oh, okay.
in-hole access. So what I did, I put it in the front, and the built-in bungee cords that come on the kayak. Yeah, I slid the wheel under it, so it wouldn't fall off. So yeah, I still got my cart.
Good.
But what was I saying? Oh, my soft plastics bag
Right.
that I have. It's basically like a cheap tackle bag you get at Walmart. It holds like 3 of the smaller boxes, 4, whatever it is. I put all my soft plastics in there, put it on top of my crate, and it's like just a bungee cord that I got over top of it to keep it from falling off. Surprisingly, that held up, and it never came off. That probably would have made me very sad if I would have lost. Hopefully, it would have floated with all those soft plastics, but
Depending
man,
what kind of a bag it is, too. If it holds any kind of air, a lot of times they do float. But
well, it's a cheap bag, so it probably would have let a lot of water in. But yeah, there's a lot of soft plastics in that bag. So
it's making me think about what I don't tether. And I have floats on my rods, and I usually, but not always, I have a zippered, like I have a kayak or a crate bag that I got on Walmart that actually the crate sits down into it and then it zippers closed around the top. But usually if I get anything out of it, I don't zipper it until I'm headed back in, because zippering and unzippering it's kind of a pain. So that definitely.
I'm pretty bad about that too with that soft plastics bag. Like if I get something out, I won't zip it all the way back up. But I don't think I'd even pulled anything out of there. I think I pretty much already had everything I was using, so it was still zipped up. But that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this, tonight, because I'd rather people learn from my mistakes. Like, if it's important to you, tether it, because I'm a believer now. It's not a matter of if you flip your kayak; it's a matter of when. Because I've had close calls, but I'd never flipped before, and
Now, one thing I was thinking about, like I noticed in the paddle and fin bracket tournament final, Dudu was using a paddle leash, I think. At least it looked like to me he was. And I was thinking, that was one of the things I did away with, because I felt like that was too much of a tangle hazard.
yeah. Well, there are a lot of people out there that talk about. I believe we had somebody on talking about. I believe it was either Paul Strom or Juan Varut. I can't remember which one it was, but I believe it was one of them that was talking about like they're against leashes and all that because that's more stuff to get tangled up in. And I can agree to an extent. I don't use a paddle leash partly for that reason. But as far like the little stuff that's kind of out of the way of my legs and my body, I use them for like, my catch board. It's going up under my seat, so my legs should be clear before that's. I didn't get tangled up in anything, so I feel pretty confident in the leashes I do use. One important thing is I keep my phone leashed to my life jacket, and it's like I could have lost the phone if I didn't have it leashed to it. So
I use a Rogue tether for my phone, but one of the straps ripped already, so at least partially, so it doesn't hold it as tight as it really should. And I've had a couple times where I've just been taking pictures of fish and it pop out of it. It's one of those that like the plastic just goes around the four corners.
Yeah.
And I've had it pop out of there a few times, and I'm like, man, I guess I just need to get another one because it's not that safe. And I've thought about, usually I put it on my on my kayak. I attach it to my kayak, and I'm thinking, now maybe I should have it on attached to my life jacket. So
Yeah, I always keep mine in my left pocket of my life jacket. That's where I keep my phone. Um, but yeah, I've never really liked the idea of that style uh, leash or whatever, like the part that goes over the phone like that. I like the ones that like go inside. I always keep an OtterBox on mine anyways, and you just put it inside there, and it's got a little thing that sticks out of your case, and you can just hook it to that. Which I got mine's homemade. Mine's like an old credit card with like a little hair tie thing that I stole from my wife, and just wrapped it around there. And
don't you just leave that in your case all the time then? That's the one thing I didn't know about that. Like,
um, I used to not. I used to take it out every time. It didn't take but a second to like pop the rubber piece off of my phone tether and pull it out. Just leave it in my truck. I've kind of gotten lazy and I've gotten used to it, so now I'll just kind of keep it on there. It don't really bother me.
that's what I was wondering with an OtterBox. I know sometimes they're not super easy to take apart, but
Well, well, I don't actually put it all the way inside. I just put it underneath the rubber.
okay.
You got the hard plastic part that goes around your phone that snaps in. Then you got the rubber part that just kind of
I
comes
got
on
you.
top of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just
Okay.
underneath the rubber and have it coming out one of the bottom holes.
Okay.
But yeah, um, like I was saying earlier, it didn't really scare me, but like afterwards, I was gonna keep fishing till I realized like my phone wasn't working and I lost my battery and all that. Other than that, I probably would have kept fishing. But I was like, no, I just need to get home, get my phone on rice and all that. So as I was like pedaling back, um, I was thinking about like all the what ifs, what could have happened and all that. And, you know, luckily, I'm all right. Everything's good other than, my rod and a couple other things. And so, when I got home, I hugged my kids, hugged my wife.
That's the one thing that scares me. I didn't fish the river as much of the lake initially because of that, because moving water kind of still has, it, there's some fear there, that maybe, especially with my pedals sticking down now. Like before, when there was nothing really sticking down, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna bumper glide over most everything. But now with my pedals sticking down, I'm like, I could be casting, get stuck on something, and I'm worried about that and not paying attention to where I'm gonna drift. And if I hit rocks underneath, I can see how that would make you tip pretty easy. So that's actually, I mean, the river's slow right now, so I and slow and low. So I've actually been paddling more, and only pedaling when I get tired or when I just want to get somewhere else quick, and it's deep enough. I've been fishing a lot of grass too, which the pedals don't go through as well. So that's another reason. But it's been in the back of my mind that I do have to be a little more careful with those in the river. And at least on the Hobie, I can push one foot back forward and the other one the whole way back, and then it pulls the fins up against the hull somewhat. And I do have like the Hobie comes with like this bungee that you can then put on the pedal closest to you, and it'll keep it up, the fins up, so that you don't have to hold it with your feet. But even with that, it's still something that can catch on it. So.
Yeah, I've had a couple instances where like my drive bumps something in the river and it'll kind of like rock the kayak like that. But it hasn't been real bad. As far as like moving forward, it's a kick up drive, so if I hit something, it'll pop up. But I'm definitely gonna be more careful out on the water now. Like try to, you know, be less greedy. Got that last cast. uh,
It can happen fast, though. I mean, there's a million
yeah,
different ways you can get distracted, and it only takes 2 seconds of distraction, and you can be in a situation that you never saw coming. So,
yeah, and it happened fast. Like I wasn't expecting to flip. I was expecting to hit the tree. It was mostly like dirt with like roots sticking out of it, and I was expecting to bump into that. But other than that, you know, oh, one more thing that happened is on the Bite FD, it's got the steering handles on the left and the right side. Well, I only used the right side, but the left side, I don't know, the handle popped out and came loose or something, like the steering rod over there. So I haven't got to look. Like I'm gonna have to take a cover off and look at it. Hopefully, it's not like broke and it just something popped out or something like that.
mhm.
Um, it don't affect the kayak. It don't seem like, because I've got the other side, and that's the side I still got the side that I use. So, but hopefully I can get it fixed back on there.
Interesting. Does that have
Yeah.
so that turns the rudder?
Yeah.
Okay. See, there's been times going through grass and stuff where my rudder has gotten jammed with grass, and it's not something you can reach from the kayak. So I pretty much have to go someplace shallow and then hop out and go back and pull it all out. So that's been a learning experience with the Hobie. I'll be chugging along on the river, pedaling pretty good, and then all of a sudden you hit grass and it's like you've run through concrete. It slows you down, and
Wow.
then you gotta really, if you pedal through it, you really gotta pedal in it. And a lot of times I can pull up my pedals and clear the grass off of those, but the rudder, just the way it pops down, it can get in that hinge there and not let the rudder turn right. So it's definitely been a learning experience, and that's why I started pedaling more.
I got a little cut on my finger from flipping too. I don't know what I cut it on, but kind of irritating right now.
Just
uh,
a little reminder.
so what's the rudder like on the Outback? Like, does it stick down below the kayak, or?
There's like a pull tab that you release. When you want to stow it, you pull this tab up and then lock it into a cleat, and then it pulls up against the hull, and then it's no lower than the keel of the kayak. But then when you pop it free from that cleat and let the rope go, then it drops down, and then so that it can turn. So when it's down, it's probably 10, 12 inches below the bottom of the kayak. So
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's pretty big, and like I said, the way it hinges there so that it can come up and down. When it's down, and you go through grass, it can get wedged in that hinge, and then it doesn't allow it to go side to side as easily. Like you can really feel it in the steering. Like all of a sudden, I'll be trying to turn, and it'll be really, really tight because it's grinding against that grass in the hinge. So either gotta get over to shore, or sit there and pull the string a little bit to try and pop it up and down and try and get the grass out. So
Well, that's interesting because my rudder is flush with the bottom of my kayak.
the whole time.
And, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and which that might be why the Bite FDs have had issues with their turning radius. Or part of the reason why, anyways. Because a lot of people have talked about how they don't turn the greatest, and they don't, but yeah.
I was looking for a picture of the Hobie Outback rudder to see if I could find what it looks like sticking down, but that's kind of it. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
So yeah, when it's down, like I said, you can kind of see that hinge there right in the middle. Grass can just get wedged in there, and then
Yeah.
it doesn't want to turn. So, but it does make the turning a lot sharper. So I
Yeah,
remember actually
I'm sure you turn a lot better than me.
one time I was in a hurry too putting in, and the Hobie has like this piece of plastic that you hook under the back rail so that when you load and unload it, it doesn't damage the rudder. It sits on this hunk of plastic. It's like a little block that you use just for transfer for getting it on and off. And one time I was in such a hurry to get on the water, I forgot to take that block off, and then I couldn't get my rudder down. I'm like, why isn't it going down? And I look back, I'm like, oh crap. So luckily I was able to kind of crawl to the back of my kayak and pull it up so that I could drop the rudder, but it definitely was a pain. I didn't make that mistake more than once.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I guess that's the advantage of, being a smaller dude. Yeah.
Oh, I've crawled to. I just yesterday I had to crawl to the front because I had my inline spinner on and it got hooked in that front handle, and I'm like yanking and pulling and it was through the rope, so I had to kind of lay on my stomach and crawl up there and
I've had that happen before, but I had to pull over to the bank to get it off. Luckily now the Bite FD's got the molded in handles, so you ain't got to worry about that.
Okay. Yeah, that definitely happens with the Hobie a lot.
So
I actually lost a bass because of that, because I had him, I was reeling him up and he came up up at the front and right through that, right by the handle. One hook got caught on the handle and he flipped off. I actually missed 4 bass yesterday. I caught 6, but I missed 4. So all either jumping or getting off. So
man, I
don't know what my hook. I think I'm not hook setting properly with that inline spinner. Now the hook's small, and that the 15-inch I caught, I lucked out because it was right in the corner of his mouth and it was just hanging on by a little skin. If he would have went any different direction, I probably wouldn't have got him in the boat, but for whatever reason he came straight to me. So
and you caught a couple fish on that Jody Queen special.
I did.
Yep, we talked about last week, didn't you?
I had never caught a bass on a spinner bait, and so I was kind of thinking, I'd been catching a lot of catfish on the inline spinner, and I was like, maybe I should throw the regular spinner bait, and maybe I'll stay away from the catfish a little bit. So I started mixing that in, and actually, like I said, when I think the 13-inch I caught was actually on the spinner bait. The big one was on the inline spinner, but the 2 of the other ones, I think there's a 12 1/4 and a 13, and both of those came on the spinner bait. So that was neat. I was pumped that I tried something new and it worked. And that was using exactly what he said. I got the exact spinner bait he said, and even changed the top blade like he said. So Jody Queen's juice is the real deal, man.
Hey, I'm still waiting on mine. Tuesday. So you got anything coming up? Like, when's your next outing?
I have no clue. I want to survive this first week of school.
When does it start?
Well, the 9th graders go back tomorrow, and then the 10th and 12th graders go back on Thursday. So the 9th graders have 3 days on site without the 12th or the upperclassmen. So, but I have a 9th grade homeroom, so I start tomorrow.
The freshmen get to avoid the swirlies for a
few
days.
Yep. Yeah, they said they've always wanted to do freshman orientation like this, and COVID finally gave them the opportunity. So, so that's how it's working with us. So it'll be an interesting week for sure. So,
well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
I'm off all week.
Wow.
I was off this past week, and I'm off this week. See, usually we have a 2-week shutdown at my work every summer around the 4th of July, but with the whole COVID thing, us being off work for 3 months, they moved our shutdown to now, last week and this coming week. And so, this coming up weekend it's a 2-day event, Saturday and Sunday, at Percy Priest Lake it's the final uh, the final event for KBFTN, and it's in conjunction with the first event of the year for the CKT, it's Cumberland Kayak Trail. They do kind of like a fall thing, and I'm wanting to hit that pretty hard. Last year I was wanting to do it because they do. I assume they'll still do the same this year. I don't know for sure, but last year it was 3 fish limits, and I feel a little more comfortable with that than 5 fish limits.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wanting to do it last year, but kids were in sports and all that. Well, now with COVID, kids ain't in sports. Pretty much all the sports around here have been canceled in my town. So, I want to take that opportunity and try to hit this trail real hard. So they'll be doing events like every 2 weeks through like November, I think.
Okay.
And their first one will be this weekend, a 2-day event. I'm not 100% sure on the details. All I know is it's on Percy Priest Lake, and it's in conjunction with KBF10's final event of the year, the season closer.
Okay.
So I plan on, hitting that. Probably going to get out 1 or 2 days this week, do a little pre-fishing. And hopefully I can get a new battery in time for my fish finder.
Let me see if it's working.
Yeah, hopefully it works when I get a battery.
The fish I caught on yesterday actually gave me my limit for the September Noobs tournament, so August. I was happy about that. Or August, yeah, not September. But I noticed, I looked at the standings yesterday, and Susie's sitting in 9th, so there's quite a few people ahead of her. I was surprised. So, and the number 1, Paul Gorley, has like 103.75 inches.
Wow.
So, yeah, how's that for a month? And Susie's sitting at 84. So,
wow.
I'm up to 68 with the fish I caught yesterday, but still, I was like, when I saw where Susie was, I was like, okay, I don't feel so bad.
Yeah, man. She needs to, step it up and get on up there because I know what's going to happen if she stays where she's at. Brian ain't going to say anything to her, and I'm going to be mad. Like, he gave me all kinds of hell about it, but not Susie, Equality, okay? Equality.
So I was happy about that. But I just noticed, I saw something on Facebook today about a 3 fish limit kayak thing for September, the month of September, for my local area. So I was thinking about giving that a try, depending on how busy I am. But I think I can catch 3 fish in a month, so I might give that a try.
Speaking of Susie, I almost thought about asking her if she wanted to come on here with us tonight, since she just recently flipped her Hobie.
Right.
And, I figured maybe she'd throw some light on this too, but, it's it would have been last minute. I didn't want to put that on her. But I believe she talked about that a little bit in one of her episodes. So,
yeah, if you can flip a Hobie, pro angler, then yeah, anything can happen. I think hers was because her drive got stuck or something, right? If I remember correctly, I think her drive malfunctioned and
came and threw a big.
What's that?
Sorry, he froze up on me.
Okay.
Froze up on me for a second. But yeah, it's something with the drive, and then also, like I think a boat went by and threw a big wake on her.
Okay.
And like the drive wasn't working, so she couldn't position herself for the wake or something like that.
Okay.
I'm still behind on episodes. So,
I'm getting way behind now. So,
dude,
I don't have an hour drive anymore. So,
I listen to our podcast at work. And I was off for that 3 months, and I listened to a couple while I was off, but I was really far behind. I went back to work for a couple months before this shut down, and I could have easily had them all listened to, but like I didn't listen to them constantly while I was at work, so I still had. I think I was behind like 12 or 13 episodes still. Whenever I finished, like on that last Friday at work, and so now I'm behind all last week, and I'll be behind all this week too. So several more.
That makes it tough to catch up. I'm in the same boat. I've been trying to watch the live ones at night if I can catch them. That way I don't have to try and catch up on those, but haven't always done that either. So, and now we got so many, it's definitely tough to find the time to listen to them all.
and not to mention, if you try to watch the Monday Night Live, Dan and Jimmy are just so ugly, and then Brian's ugly. It's hard to watch them. Now that Jay's back on the OG show, it's somewhat watchable. But when it was just Brian,
right?
Yeah, when it was just Brian, yeah.
Oh my.
But yeah, man. So we're coming up close to an hour here.
Yep.
I feel like we covered some stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you're okay, first of all. Material things can be replaced, obviously, like you said. But the important thing is you have a lesson to take away from it, and, that you survived and everything's good. That hopefully your phone and stuff survives. But,
I'm going to
definitely,
go check it as soon as we get done with this.
Well, I was going to tell you, be careful with that, because if it's going on off and on, that probably means it's still in there, and turning it back on could actually make it worse. So it almost might be better to let it off for a little bit, let the rice do its thing. But
well, I was gonna, I'm not gonna turn it on myself.
okay.
But like, since it was cutting itself on and going off, I was gonna see if it happened to turn itself on.
Okay.
And go from there.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys learned something. Like I said, if we can make the expensive mistakes so that you don't have to, that's definitely something we want to do. So be safe out there. Wear your PFD.
Yes.
Because you never know what's going to happen. So this has been the Bass Fishing for Noobs segment on the Paddle and Fit podcast, where we bring you the techniques, the trips, and the screwed it up.
The trips.
The tricks and tips to help you rip more lips.
Later, y'all.